On the 1st of July 2002, a total of 60 passengers, including 45 children, were waiting for a flight at 8:10 in the morning at Moscow's Domodedovo International Airport. After 30 minutes at around 8 o'clock, Flight 2937 of Bashkirian Airlines took off from Moscow, heading to Barcelona with 60 passengers and crew members. This plane was to cover a distance of 3,000 kilometers in 4 hours and 20 minutes. At around 11 o'clock at night, the plane entered the airspace over Switzerland. This airspace was being controlled by a private Swiss airspace control company, SkyGuide. Peter Nielsen was present with one of his companions as an air traffic controller in the control room at 11 p.m. On July 1st, from morning to evening, there was a big, busy day, according to air traffic. But after 11 p.m., there was no landing scheduled for any plane at any airport in that entire airspace. And the air traffic passing through that airspace was also reduced to a great extent. Therefore, at 11 at night, Peter's colleagues also left the responsibility of their workstation and went on a break. That is, Peter was now handling 2 workstations. Where the traffic show of airspace was being done on the earlier radar system, then, the planes landing at the airport on the second radar system were being monitored. At 11:06, Flight 2937 was flying at an altitude of 36,000 feet above Australia. Everybody present in the plane was convinced that they would reach Barcelona in about 2 hours, but no one knew that danger was lurking 600 kilometers away from them. At 11:06, a DHL Flight 611 took off for Brussels. At around 11:10, Peter Nielsen was informed that his main radar system had been closed for maintenance, so now, they would have to use the backup system. At 11:21, Flight 611 entered Peter Nielsen's airspace. The plane pilots contacted Peter and sought permission to fly at 36,000 feet altitude. Before giving permission, Nielsen regulated the air traffic and started doing normal calculations to ensure there was no other plane at this altitude and on this route. But then, a message about a delayed airbase flight, 11:35, appeared on the second radar system, indicating it had to land at a nearby airport. So Peter left his work in the middle and moved to the second radar system. Peter tried to contact the nearby airport tower, but his phone was not working due to a maintenance program at the workstation. So he returned to the first radar system because now Flight 1135 was 10 minutes from landing. After coming to the first radar system, Peter approved the DSL flight for a flight at a 36,000 feet altitude and tried to contact back from a nearby airport tower. After approval of the flight at 36,000 feet, he gave his altitude as 36,000 feet. On the other hand, Flight 2937, which was going to Barcelona, was also flying at a height of 36,000 feet. The passengers on board were completely unaware of the potential danger that was looming ahead. They were enjoying their in-flight meals, watching movies, and some were even taking a nap, oblivious to the fact that their flight path was about to intersect with another aircraft. That is, 2 minutes before the incident, both planes were 44 kilometers from each other on the same altitude, and were coming towards each other at a fast speed of sound. The pilots of both aircraft were diligently monitoring their instruments, ensuring everything was running smoothly. However, the radar screens in the air traffic control tower were beginning to show a concerning pattern. The 2 planes were on a collision course, and the distance between them was closing rapidly. The problem here was that the air route of both planes was crossing. The air traffic controllers were now faced with a critical situation. They had to act quickly to prevent a disaster. The intersecting flight paths meant that if no action was taken, the 2 planes would collide in mid-air. The controllers were frantically communicating with the pilots, trying to coordinate a safe maneuver to avoid the collision. That is, both planes were running at jet speed. At such high velocities, even a small miscalculation could lead to catastrophic consequences. The pilots had to rely on their training and the instructions from air traffic control to navigate this perilous situation. The jet engines roared as the planes hurtled through the sky, each second bringing them closer to the potential point of impact. The 2 planes could hit each other over Switzerland. The picturesque landscape of the Swiss Alps below was in stark contrast to the tense atmosphere in the cockpits and the control tower. The majestic mountains stood as silent witnesses to the unfolding drama in the skies above. The air traffic controllers, with their eyes glued to the radar screens, were working against the clock to avert a disaster. The pilots, following the rapid instructions, were making critical adjustments to their flight paths. The fate of hundreds of passengers hung in the balance as the 2 planes approached each other over the serene Swiss landscape. About 43 seconds before the incident, air traffic controller Peter realized the seriousness of the situation. and he immediately contacted Flight 2937 and asked the pilots to perform the descent immediately. Peter, the air traffic controller on duty, instructed the Russian pilots to immediately descend to flight level 350. This instruction was clear and precise, aimed at ensuring the safe separation of aircraft in the busy airspace. The pilots acknowledged the command and began to adjust their altitude accordingly. However, the skies are often unpredictable, and what happened next was a testament to the complexities of modern aviation. But just a second after this instruction, the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, or TCS, of Flight 2937 beeped loudly, piercing through the cockpit's ambient noise. The TCS, an automated system designed to prevent mid-air collisions, instructed the pilots to climb. This sudden and conflicting directive created a moment of intense confusion and urgency in the cockpit. The pilots, trained to respond swiftly to TCAS alerts, were now faced with a critical decision. Exactly at the same time, the TCAS of the other aircraft, a DHL cargo flight, began to warn its pilots to descend immediately. The DHL pilots, following standard operating procedures, started to descend as instructed by their TCAS. This simultaneous issuance of conflicting instructions from the TCAS systems of both aircraft set the stage for a potential disaster. The air traffic controller's voice over the radio was now just one of many inputs the pilots had to consider. Hence, the DHL flight pilots started descending according to the TCAS instructions. They trusted the automated system, which had been designed to override human error and provide real-time solutions to avoid collisions. The descent was initiated smoothly, but the tension in the cockpit was palpable. Every second counted, and the pilots' training and experience were being tested to the limit. But on the other hand, the pilots of Flight 2937 were confused about whether to follow the air traffic controller's instructions or the TCAS. The air traffic controller's directive to descend was in direct conflict with the TCAS command to climb. This dilemma highlighted a critical issue in aviation safety: the potential for human and automated systems to provide conflicting guidance. The pilots had to make a split-second decision, weighing the authority of the air traffic controller against the reliability of the TCAS. Their choice would determine the outcome of this high-stakes situation. Then Peter repeated his instruction and asked the pilots of Flight 2937 to descend. Finally, the Russian pilots decided to obey the controller and started descending the plane. At this point, both planes were descending and coming down from about 23,000 feet, which was completely opposite to the TCAS instructions for Flight 2937. The pilots were in a critical situation, and every second counted. The descent was rapid and the altitude was dropping fast, creating a tense atmosphere in the cockpit. The pilots had to rely on their training and the aircraft systems to navigate through this dangerous scenario. The Traffic Collision Avoidance System, or TCAS, in each plane creates a three-dimensional map around the aircraft using altitude, speed, and heading data. This sophisticated system is designed to enhance flight safety by providing real-time information about the position and movement of nearby aircraft. The TCAS system continuously monitors the airspace around the plane, ensuring that any potential threats are detected well in advance. By analyzing the data, it can predict the future positions of the aircraft and determine if there is a risk of collision. This map's information is continuously transmitted to surrounding planes. The data exchange between aircraft is crucial for maintaining situational awareness and ensuring that all pilots have the most up-to-date information. The TCAS system uses this data to calculate the safest course of action, whether it involves climbing, descending, or maintaining the current altitude. This constant communication between planes helps to prevent mid-air collisions and enhances overall air traffic safety. As soon as another aircraft enters this map, the system warns the pilot and provides instructions to avoid a collision. The TCAS alert is designed to capture the pilot's attention immediately, with both visual and auditory signals. The system will then issue a resolution advisory, which is a specific maneuver that the pilot should follow to avoid the other aircraft. These instructions are clear and concise, ensuring that the pilot can react quickly and effectively. The TCAS system is a vital tool in modern aviation, providing an additional layer of safety and helping to prevent accidents in the skies. Meanwhile, Peter, observing from the control room, saw that Flight 2937 had followed his instructions and descended. He was convinced that everything was going well. At this time, Peter was unaware that the DHL flight had also descended.